Welcome everybody to the 37th Cultural Majlis. My name is Sultan Saoud Al-Qasmi. It gives me a great pleasure to be hosting our dear guest today, live from Morocco. Before we proceed with tonight, I just want to say that my thoughts and my prayers are with our friends and family in Lebanon who have gone through a devastating past few days. And today they are protesting for justice. And we are holding this talk, but our mind and our hearts are also with them, hoping that they also prevail. So our guest today is the great Moroccan and great global artist, really, Mohamed Melehi, Sidi Mohamed, who will be speaking about his journey. But to introduce Sidi Mohamed, I have a great pleasure of asking one of my former students, Lena Golzer, who is joining us from Illinois. Lena graduated from Yale in 2019 with a degree in global affairs. Lena took my course on Middle Eastern art and politics in her final year, I believe, and she wrote her paper on a magazine that we will hear about called Souffle and the evolution of Moroccan artistic identity after independence. And Lena will be introducing our speaker tonight. Go ahead, Lena.
Thank you. Thank you, Sultan, for giving me the chance to give this introduction. Originally from the town of Aslila, Mohamed Melehi graduated from L'École des Beaux-Arts in Tétouan, Morocco in 1955. He continued his studies abroad, learning fine art in Seville and Madrid, sculpture in Rome, and engraving in Paris. In the early 60s, he traveled to the United States, where he studied at Columbia University for 2 years before returning to Morocco in 1964. Melehi became part of the Casablanca Group, a collective of artists who rejected previous understandings of Moroccan art as uniquely comprised of the picturesque and naive, and worked to elevate the status of abstract and figurative art that was both innovative and inspired by the traditions of indigenous art. Also central to the ethos of the Casablanca Group was the accessibility of art. In 1969, a number of them, including Melehi, put on the Exposition Manifeste, an open-air exhibition in the bustling public square of Jamal Fna in Marrakesh. It was, as Melehi put it, an ideological message about what art could be. In 1966, Melehi designed the first cover of the revolutionary Moroccan artistic literary journal, Souffle. His design, a bold yet simple sun, remained on the cover of the first 14 issues of the magazine. In a special 1967 double issue entitled Art Plastique, Melehi argues that cultural identity and national culture don't invent themselves. They are rooted in research, and for a painter, paint is the tool used for research. From 1964 to 1969, Melehi also taught painting, sculpture, and photography as a professor at the Casablanca School of Fine Arts. Melehi is the president of the Moroccan Association of Plastic Arts and was the director of arts for the Ministry of Culture from 1985 to 1992. He has held numerous solo exhibitions, including a retrospective at the Institut du Monde Arabe in Paris in 1995 and the Bronx Museum of the Arts, New York, 1984, and has participated in group shows across the globe. And every summer, his birthplace of Aslila hosts a cultural festival, which he co-founded in 1978, that decorates the white walls of the seaside town with murals and public displays of art by artists in residence. There you can also see Melehi's own colorful works, larger than life.
Thank you so much, Lena. Sidi Mohamed, if you allow me to share my slides, and I will proceed with the talk tonight. There you go, present. Yes, okay. Sidi Mohamed, actually this is there we go. Sidi Mohamed, I would like to begin by asking you about your childhood growing up in Morocco. How was it?
Thank you very much. Well, to this picture or photograph looks like if it is done right now, but it was done many years ago in 1945 45-46 in Tangier. My parents took me to Tangier because I had a problem of appendicitis, so I had to go through surgeon and uh, be in this operation. So this was not only the only reason I went to Tangier. I used to be taken with my father to Tangier, and at that time Tangier was really the place in the world where many things happen politically, economically, and so on. So as you may imagine in this photograph, it has been retouched before the Photoshop. In those times, photographers used to render the photographs look nicer and more beautiful. So I don't look like that anymore. So this period, which is very important in my life, uh, my my interest in life at that time, I can testify, is to listen. And I can tell you that I was a good listener. But before the appendicitis, my elbow was broken. I fall when I was 6 years old. So my father brought a man to cure my arm. And this man, every time he comes to cure my arm, he would talk about the last World War II. So I've been in, under listening of what was happening in the world in terms of divisions and nations, you know, and our position, Tangier, is in the middle, in the center. A lot of the war sounds were over our head. So uh, I was born in 1936, the start of the civil war in Spain. At that period, we were under Spanish administrative ruling in Morocco. Of course, a bit later, the, the war. So that man used to tell to my father about the countries like Poland, Italy, um, and others. So as a child, when I used to play with my friend in the narrow streets of Asila, each of us took a nationality, and it did happen that I took the nationality of the loser, Italy. So the destiny was that I will happen to go to Italy, and then it's in Italy where my eyes got and more open, and I got in touch with the international and universal culture. Although my studies of art start in Morocco, and before I should mention and remind our public today that that period we had no portable telephones, no television. We had only one breathing window, which was the cinema screens. Through these screens, we have seen lots of Hollywood films and also Egyptian films and songs. So those were the sounds we are used to at that time. And we had to make an effort to figure out where is America, where is Egypt, where is Italy. So in my mind, I recall of some songs of Muhammad Abdul Wahab, uh, Igri Igri, Ogibat Bi, and his pictures of Ward al-Bayda and Yom Sa'id. So this material was filling my mind, my mentality, and the Hollywood movies. So I was being of a weak structure. It was not really very healthy. So I learned on this information that came to me. So I was not a good listener in school. So this was my main interest. And I think these elements, happen to be my sort of fundaments to, to dream to become an artist. And my father was not, uh, let's say, educated in terms to show my their drawings at that time as an interesting achievement. He will show my drawings to his friends, Spaniards, Europeans. So they will, impress them. They would tell him, your son will be an artist, will be so translated, being an artist or painted to Arabic speaking most aware. So I am confused being photographer. So it was a mixture of things. So anyway, these souvenirs and this the knowledge of the world, because we had to make an effort to figure out what was the word at that time for us, and the fact that we were attracted to learn several languages. As a matter of fact, I speak 4 or 5 languages at the same time. Also Arabic too, And so the one of the elements that has played a big role in my becoming is the political situation. The political situation in the 40s was quite different from today's. Also, we were a country, Morocco, under the French and Spanish administrative ruling. We were aiming to become independent one day. So all this material in the mind of an adolescent child is to conjugate all these elements and try to become a product of this whole knowledge of things. It's different from today. A child today is, I would say, a bit narrowed in his vision and in his becoming. So those elements were very important for me and for my generation to become what I am today.
Thank you. See, Mohammed, just a side question. I wasn't planning on asking you this, but do you remember any American movie that you watched? You said US American films or Egyptian films.
I wonder if you recall what was Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer picture, you see. That was the right picture to see being an adolescent.
Very good.
Besides that, I used to know all the actors and actors, Bogart, Lana Turner, Lauren Bacall, name them. You know the reason why? Because we used to receive Hollywood pictures, Spanish speaking. Why? Spain is a small country in the world, but the cinematographic production of Hollywood was oriented to Latin America mostly. Spanish speaking countries, so we were benefit to see this movie. So every night, almost every night, we would say a new picture. Of course, lately I saw Gone with the Wind in the early 50s. Was this many Western pictures, a lot of them.
Thank you.
That make some pieces of dream of my aim to visit America one day.
Okay. We're going to talk about that in a minute, actually.
At the same time, because of Abdul Wahab and all the team of Egyptian and Lebanese actors in Cairo, I dreamt always to go to Cairo one day. But unfortunately, I got to Cairo when I was 34 years old in 1971. And I was deceived because I was expecting to see part of our culture, of the edifice, of the big building of our culture was made in Egypt, while we are quite distant from Egypt. So it was really a deception. Well, to be frank with you, I did cry. Because I couldn't support for many years. I dreamt of Cairo, of Egypt, something, the place to go. And then when I went there, everything was like in the ruin. I visited the Egyptian Museum under the torch, they had no light, and lot of bags of sand, because they were expecting to receive, um, bombs, and it was just after the war.
Yes.
1967.
Mohammed, we will be talking about this, but I want to proceed because we have so much to talk about. Thank you for sharing that. I
Well,
wanted
I'm sorry to keep this part, most
no,
big part
I
of
am
my
interested.
talk, because this part is the fundament of my life.
Yes, yes, I love it. Thank you so much. It's perfect. It's perfect, Si Mohammed. See, see, see Mohammed, I want to go back to the 50s, before the 70s. You started making this art. This is unusual for the time. Am
Yes.
I right? People were painting, and you started working on burlap.
Well, I must tell you a reference for our colleagues artists. That the burlap period was in Rome in 1957. And in 1957, my colleagues were Mohamed Ghani, sculptor from Iraq, Ismail Fatah Turk, Fatih Mudarris, Luay Kayali. So Luay Kayali was the most closer to me. And then all this bunch of Arab artists, they were doing a work which looked like, conventional European techniques and international. So I wanted this mean of expression. The reason is that once in the Occidental world, which is different from my origins and my beliefs and religions, I discovered the reading on Zen Buddhism at that time. So I was really pleased to find Europeans to be interested in the Oriental cultures, because I considered myself that I belong to the Oriental culture. That give me some effort. So I had to operate like a sort of cleaning my mind, to do it. So I went to a very rigorous technique that's making vertical stripes, banning colors, and working only in black and gray colors. And the burlap, it took one period. Well, burlap, because when you are young, you study in foreign academies, you get influenced. The one who influenced me was Burri. Burri, an Italian artist, you may have heard and known about him. And all his paintings were made burned on burlap. This man, he was not an artist at the basics. He was a doctor. During the war, he was captured by the Americans and he was taken to Texas as a prisoner. But being a doctor, he had to work a lot on uh, military people who were wounded and they were supposed to receive surgery. So he was impressed by the work he has done in a very uh, specific time. And then he became an artist because of what he has seen practicing his surgery. So I thought with this kind of work, besides burlap, art de collage, only black and white and gray, I would I would be more faithful to the ideas I kept and received from the Zen Buddhism teaching.
Thank you, Si Mohammed. Thank you. I want to proceed because sometime in the early 60s, you received a scholarship to go to the US. Can you tell us how you ended up in the US? It was a very prestigious scholarship.
Well, actually, I went to the United States as not I would say an immigrant. I had just a visa to visit friends. But once in the United States, I tried to find a way to stay there. But before going to the United States, during my time in Rome, I came across of some artists, American artists, mainly their work, Jackson Pollock, for instance, and other artists like, well, uh, the Kooning, for instance. The Kooning sponsored a young artist in the gallery where I used to show. And they met some artists from America, from New York. So when I went there, First of all, I went to Minneapolis because to visit my friends, and especially my childhood friend is Mohamed Melehi. So once there, I thought to be enrolled in the school so I can protect my visa and stay longer in the United States. So I could be enrolled in the Faculty of Architecture, but I had to pay tuition and fees and they didn't have money. So I asked, do you have any museum in Minneapolis? Said, yes, you can go to Art Walker Center. When I got there, I asked to see the director. Director was at that time Mr. Friedman. So I explained to him my story, why I'm in the United States. So he suggested to me to go to the Minneapolis School of Art, which is part of the Minneapolis Institute of Art. So I went there and I asked to meet the director, the president. He received me. This man was quite old. He was a priest, Presbyterian, I think. So he said, okay, I can give you a chance. I put you under the role of a special student and you will teach as painting assistant with Raymond Handler in terminal year. So he said, he told me, you have another person you will meet in our school is Parviz Tanavoli, the Iranian. So so my problem was already fixed. So he invited us one day at his home for dinner, and he was impressed by this man who was, you know, a clerical man who would say sometimes when something is brought up, he said, I don't know, how can this man at this level of education and knowledge can say, I don't know. That makes to me a big difference from the Europeans. Europeans, they can hardly say don't know, you know, because they are. So this struck me, and the president told us, you both, Parviz Tanavuli and you, I need you for our students because you come from another world from which they know nothing, and you are very useful to be in our community to teach our youth what about your culture, what about your habit. And it was really pleased. But you know, Minneapolis, it gets cold in winter, 20 below. I couldn't bear that. So I went to New York to, to visit my friends in August after the semester. And then I stopped by the Rockefeller Foundation. I knew somebody who used to be as a cultural employee at the consulate and the American school in Tangier. I discovered he is the director of the Rockefeller Foundation. So he said, what do you want to do? My aim was to come to New York and stay in New York. I love jazz. I love American painting. I am really familiar with Rothko and Arnett Newman and all the company, Motherwell. And so I said, okay, I will give you a chance. Give me a little sheet of what you would like to do in New York. I will try to convince the steering committee to give you a fellowship. So I was given a fellowship for 2 years. So I started working. So they sponsored my staying in New York. They sponsored my supplies besides my fellowship. And at the end of my stay in the United States, they covered the expenses for me to visit the whole the United States. I've been through southern United States, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Seattle. I went to Oregon. I visited St. Louis, Missouri. You know, I told them I don't want to go back to my country if I don't visit all the United States. Because in the agreement I signed with the Rockefeller Foundation, there was stipulated that once you finish your training, you go back to your country and make your country benefit from your experience. So as an honest boy, I didn't want to immigrate and stay in New York, to live the city I love, I still love. And most of my time was spent in jazz clubs and to listen to music. Anyway, at that time, I don't know by which means I had the chance to be invited to show one of my paintings at the MoMA. And then I finished being one of the artists of Berta Schaefer Gallery, who put me in a show in the Washington Modern Art Gallery with in an exhibition called The Formalist. And in catalog, Piet Mondrian comes after my name. So, so this like a dream for me, you know, and lots of other many things. So once I finished so you see, these works you see in front of you and my picture in my loft at the Bowery in New York were done and executed in the United States, in New York. So to make the story short, when I came back to Morocco, I said, I have a mission is to gather my friends around me and try to do something in the country. And that's the start of the École de Casablanca, the Casablanca School of Art. Then, next to that, my experience and militantism with the magazine of Souf. When I brought my paintings to Morocco, you see, I had one-man show in Bab el in 1965. Mr. Lavi came to visit the show, and he addressed himself to me. He said, Melehi, could you design a cover of a magazine I'm going to produce? So it didn't fall in a damn ear. I said, I will do it for you. And then we started working, and they became part of the team of Souf in terms of cultural and literary work, and also an engagement, political engagement, really seriously. So that was the period. But that was at the end of Casablanca. But in Casablanca, with Belkahia, we could form a team. And here, this picture you see, Sheb'a in the right in the picture and Belkahia, they were listening deeply to my jokes. Although I am not a joke person, you know, I can hardly tell a story of love. And next to the picture, there is students working. So in Casablanca, when I started teaching there, I had to operate a sort of a change, is to put the plaster pieces of classical work that in the fine art school you find these elements to draw, to learn about perspective and the shade, dark and clear. I said, I get rid of these pieces. I prefer to work with traditional pieces of work. This is really a big story. You know. It looks like if I am talking superficially, but it has started with relations with people and friends. One of them is a Dutchman who is still alive in Morocco, and he was really interested in the African arts and traditional Moroccan arts. This guy I met in Madrid in 1957, and since that date we became friends. So he joined our team. So here you have the cover of the issues 7, 8 on plastic arts, and the poster designed by myself. And this poster has been collected as one of an important artistic realization at the moment in the graphic art department. So I wrote 3 names in a Gothic style of calligraphy, and I render Latin characters in Kufic also. So this poster was done for an exhibition that we mounted in Rabat, Bilkahia, Sheba and I, in the theater entrance, the lobby of the theater, because you have no space where you can show properly works of art with not modern concept. So we exposed paintings without signing them, without a list of price, to tell people it's not for sale, it's for learn and watch and discuss. This was one of the first steps to bring art to the majority, to the collectivity. See, and the start was from there. This action was followed by the 1969 show in Jama' al-Fna. So you go quickly anyway. Jama' al-Fna, 1969, Morocco has appointed a personality to become a minister of culture. In the government team, we didn't have this ministry. It's a new ministry. So this man, Mohamed Al-Fassi, a prominent personality who is one of those who signed the independence document in 1932, begging France to get out of Morocco. So he was supposed or uh, advised by somebody says, okay, this ministry is just no, why we don't organize a salon of art. So the couple was exposed to all artists in Morocco, naive and beginners, and سبعات وراهتين, how you say in Arabic. So we were invited, the group of Casablanca, to attend the meeting with the minister. So I told my friends, so we should go and then present a manifest in the front of the minister and quit the room. In our group, Sheba was more fluent in Arabic language, so we wrote the manifest in French and then it was translated in Arabic. So the minister was really impressed, a man in advanced age. He saw a man standing up and reading sheet of paper, page. Once the reading was finished, we stand up, all of us, and quit the, 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 the meeting. It was a big shock. So we said we have marked a point in the game. So next, what to do? The ministry will go ahead with its project to make this composite show at the town hall, but there is a place, the more popular place in Morocco is Jama'atna, which now is considered as international patrimony of culture. So I said, well, it was my idea. I hate to say my idea or my ideas, but I should witness to the public. My work in Morocco at the Casablanca group, was to lead the group in terms of action and ideas and make the group be a receptionist of the magazine, which was really, Soufl at that time was a very violent magazine without throwing bombs, but asking for change, for a change. We asked for a change. So we said we organize next to the minister exhibition, our works would be hung at a very popular square, day and night for a whole week. These works of art are exhibited to be seen and to be discussed in public openly regardless of the level of knowledge of people, because we pretend, and I, I insist on that popular culture contains really the roots of whatever could be even modernism. So this exhibition created a big polemic, and argue, we argue with professional people, doctors, lawyers, engineers, the, the, I would say, the wise society in modern times. But we had to fight and to argue with them that art, it's not really an expression of bourgeois culture. Art is, you find it within every place and with every person. So this was the start. So at that was the last year at the École des Beaux-Arts. You see here this picture we used to discuss with César, the famous French artist who was invited to Morocco. In this picture you see Mohamed Hamidi, Mohamed Shbani, myself from, and works of students. Now, in one of the years, we gathered painting department and decoration and graphic art department headed by Shiva, and we took students to investigate or to take over a place and and paint the place and render the place the piece of work of art, not the, the mobile piece of art, which is the painting. Anyway, next to Jam Al Fana, we have done the same activity in Casablanca, in a very famous square. We put the works there, hang normally in a square, day and night, with no security, nothing. What is really impressive that people, I don't know, maybe they are scared to touch paintings, or maybe they respect. None of violent action has been taken against these works. Then we went to high schools of girls and boys to bring art to them and to show them that there is a new way of art that they live with, but they are not conscious to it. I mean, they don't know. And this was the start. Now, all this, if you allow me to go back to my childhood, that was in the 40s. The 40s and the 50s were very determinant years for our countries in North Africa, particularly Morocco, is to open our eyes on the world. We had no tradition of painting in Morocco, besides Egypt and maybe Iraq later in the 70s and Lebanon. So we try to manage to burn the time that Morocco, a young African country, rich of a lot of tradition, could be modern, could produce modern thinking in terms of painting. Sorry. Like this event, we had several. So then next to it became the Asela Festival. You may know about it.
Yes.
The same team of artists went there, and we started also an activity specific in terms of art, modern art history in Morocco. Please put some questions.
Okay, yes, okay. I wanted to proceed and ask you, Si Mohammed, about your activism for Palestine. I see that you've produced a poster and some works. Can you tell us, this is from the 60s and from the 70s? tell us about the relationship between not just yourself, but maybe Morocco with other causes. Let's say Palestine.
Well, you know, Morocco is one of the most distant country to Palestine. At the same time, is the most closer country with its people and even with official ruling closer to Palestine. The Moroccan people feels the Palestinian tragedy very strongly, although we are not neighbors to Palestine. And this qadiyya has occupied part of our thinking and our interest. And in any action in culture, art, poetry, writing was really devoted to the Palestinian cause. So I have to witness that in the early 70s, when the Arab artists started to gather and to work out some artistic activity in terms of culture and politics, and it has started in Baghdad, I must say that. The Mahrajan al-Wasiti was the launch of this endeavor. And one of the most important activists in this affair was Ismail Shammoud.
He was the director of the Arab Plastic Arts Union.
He was the most active person to, to shake the Arab artists to do something. And from there, the idea of starting a biennale, unfortunately, doesn't exist anymore, which is something Arabs should think of to do now. So the Palestinian affair was only present in all discussions of the Arab artists. Every Arab artist expressed his concern by his work toward the Palestinian cause. Besides the Palestinian artists who have painted and drawn some dramatic and tragic visions in their paintings, I'm afraid they could not reach the mission. To Palestine is the behavior and the intention and what you can do to keep the Palestinian word high. So Moroccans, we were really interested, impressed, and personally I've designed posters like this famous poster, and it has been in integral later on. It has played a sort of figuration of our militantism at the time. And also to draw a poster like this, it's fully charged with plastic intention and form. It says what it says.
Okay. Mr. Melehi, I will carry on. We will not stop in these pictures. If that's okay, we'll just show them, these images, unless you want to say something about this.
This painting, I was working, this was one of my studios in Casablanca. And I'm happy that your collection, this painting belongs to your collection.
We are more happy, Si Mohammed.
So this kind of work I have started in the late 60s, early 70s. That was to move from really the real modern academic work is to investigate in African, Arab, Islamic patterns, you know. I came back to color. I quit blacks, the black colors in my paintings. I might come back again, I don't know. And it shows now, this kind of work, it's new in terms of, those are paintings made on plywood using industrial paint with the spray, and also using workers to execute them. The idea was to ban the superiority of the artist who does his things by himself. Doing art belongs to everybody, and it belongs to society. And at that time, because of my political leaning and engagement, I wanted that the workers, those who wear a blue uniform, can paint, they can think.
Mohamed, I will carry
So
on.
I opened my studio to these people, you know, and you can see it in the film that has been was shown at Melehi's Waves in Mosaic Room in London and somewhere else. And in this picture, where I am pointing the silk screens, those silk screens were done and printed in a workshop in Florence in 1970. And these silk screens were seen by a Kuwaiti artist or a promoter by the name of Sultan. I wonder,
Gallery.
you know?
Qazi Sultan.
Sultan used to have a gallery at the Sheraton in Kuwait, and he has shown these silk screens. So, because and thanks to him, these silk screens were seen in his collection by Iraqi artists like Azawi and his friend, he died. Now I forgot names. So through the scene and knowledge of these screens, I was invited to attend the Al-Wasiti meeting.
Yes.
The Al-Wasiti festival has played a very important role in awakening some of Moroccan artists. Moroccan artists, majority didn't know what's going on in the Middle East.
Yes.
I mentioned Al-Qasimi, for instance. He has really impressed and instructed by meeting the Iraqi art and the Iraqi movement in the 70s.
Sultan Gallery.
So this gallery was started its activity in 1971.
See Mohamed,
which I draw the
see Mohamed, if you allow me.
And I was the one who pushed the owner to open this gallery.
Fantastic. See Mohamed, if you allow me, actually I want to take a short break and ask to talk about your exhibition that's coming up in Dubai, because there is a show coming up in Dubai and we have the curator here, and I thought if you allow me for 2 minutes.
Of course, more minutes. Yeah, better a good break.
Yeah, so I'll give you a break and I will ask Murad Muntazimi, who is the co-curator of the exhibition New Waves, Mohamed Melehi and the Casablanca Art School Archives, which will be opening in concrete about in about a few weeks. Murad, would you care to share a little bit about what we will be saying? Because this exhibition opened first in Mosaic Room, as Si Mohammed said. It opened in London, and then it moved to Makal in Morocco. And now it's coming to Dubai very soon. We don't know when. Could you tell us a little bit about it, Murad?
Of course. Does my microphone work? Yeah. So
Yes,
yeah, we are very happy that eventually, in spite of the interruption and the lockdown back in March, the virus crisis began, and this project for a third venue of Mr. Melehi's exhibition was suspended, but will eventually be installed around the end of September. The exact dates should be communicated very soon, but for now it's targeted for the end of September, and it will be around 20 days exhibition. And it's a fairly chronological account of Mr. Melehi's historical trajectory, mainly between the 50s and the 80s. So let's say for the historical part of his work and life. And I guess one of the biggest aim of that exhibition, thanks to Mr. Melehi's collaboration, obviously, and his own testimony and accountability for all that history that involves not only himself, but also other protagonists of the Casablanca Art School, which we tried to retrace through the archives, is basically to show the diversity of the works established back at that time, which, as you understood, goes way beyond painting. Also deals with graphic art, but also with street displays and exhibitions, and eventually all the journals and the publication that Mr. Melehi referred to, and that he also established through his own publishing platform in the 70s that was called Shuf, eventually give you a fairly impressive range of platforms, of experiments, and all of this, of course, in the absence of a modern and contemporary art museum in Morocco back in the 60s and 70s, even until you could say the 21st century, for the arrival of national institution of modern and contemporary in Morocco. So yeah, this is the scenario, and we're very happy, and I'm very thankful to Al Serkal and to all the colleagues in Dubai, with Nada Raza as the artistic director, who will be conducting the project.
Thank you so much, Murad. Si Mohammed, I actually want to ask you about something. People know you more as an artist and a painter, but they don't know that you are also a very accomplished, and if I can do this, you are also a very accomplished sculptor. I'm not sure if you can see my slide. I'm only going to show one here, but I want to ask you, this is one. I want to ask you, Si Mohammed, about a slide that's about a sculpture. This is in Asila. This is in Rabat, Tangier, I think between both. But then there's this one also, which is in Mexico City.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Tell us about Si Mohamed Melehi, the sculptor.
Well, it's very clear. I didn't mention this part of my life because when I was attending schools in Europe, in Spain, Italy, I took mostly subjects in sculpture, and then, well, in Sevilla, I was in the painting department, but then I moved to sculpture in Madrid and then in Rome. Well, as a student in sculpture, I was very, very, very good priced, and I happened to assist some of my professor at that time, Pericli Fazzini, and then, so to keep my pictorial activity out of the academic work, because I was somehow annoyed by, well, I was wrong because I was young. I didn't agree with my professors in painting, you know, because they forced me to draw what I see, not what I mean in my mind. Anyway, you know, the academy, you have to be careful about the palette of colors. So I want to sculpture. So this I've done some sculptural works in Morocco, mainly in bas-relief, and this sculpture is built in Mexico City during the Olympic Games. As I mentioned to you, that Mexico, they understood that they will not get any high prize in Olympic Games, so they organized a cultural and artistic Olympic game in Mexico preceding the launch of the Olympic Games, of course. And the idea is, it has been proposed to the Mexicans by a German artist who lived in Morocco during the war, and he uh, he got he became exiled in Mexico, and he very close to the Bauhaus movement. So we had in Morocco and several architects, very good architects, French, who could not exercise their work in France because before the last war, France was still very academic. So they came to Morocco and Senegal, in what they call colonial countries, and they could produce a very modern and advanced architecture. One of them is Zevaco. Zevaco worked in Morocco for many years, and he was a very great architect. Even they I recall in the late 60s, a book was written on him in Germany by Kulterman, and German art critic in architecture. And I worked with Zevaco in some of his projects in Morocco. So once he was known as an architect who is from the Bauhaus movement, you know, as very minimalist architecture, concrete, you know, direct concrete, no painted concrete. Anyway, so they asked him, do you know anybody in Morocco who does sculpture? So he pointed me to Matthias Goritz. And with Matthias Goritz, I became very close friend of Herbert Bayer, one of the latest alive people, you know, in the world at that time. So I built this sculpture, and it has a name. Well, it has two names: Charamusca in Mexican traditional culture, and African dance. And the idea of this monument was to build a sculpture, but in enclosed of metallic work. What that metallic work was to symbolize for Africa its colonial situation. You know, it's the power of colonial. So it's made of two colors, red and almost purple. It's 11 meters high. You see the. So I spent 3 months with the architects and engineers in, in Mexico. And what the Mexicans did, they invited 17 artists from all the world. I was one among them. And from, you know, from the Arab world, no, I was the only. France, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Belgium, United States, you see, Italy. And this, they built these sculptures in a way called the road for friendship. And this road of friendship used to go through the stadiums where the Olympics Games were going to happen. So So it was out of Mexico City. 10 years ago, they called me back again to assist its restoration. But the sculpture now is in the middle of a forest, of houses, and every Sunday morning they organize a market, a popular market. Now they are planning. I wonder they move it from there to another place, more open shade, etc. And this is the story of this sculpture. Next to it, the other one you saw in Asila, it was built in 85. No, this is later. This one, 85. And this place here is called the Mountain of the King, Qudiyat al-Sultan. Mohammed V, in 1947, still Morocco under French administrative ruling. I say administrative ruling because I don't consider Morocco as a colony of the French occupants, to be clear in this. And I don't feel that I have been colonized, and all artists who pretend to fight against colonialism in Morocco in terms of art, they are wrong, completely wrong. Had no colonial influence whatsoever. So I built this monument for this place. Why Mohammed V? Mohammed V was going to Tangier in April 1947 to make a speech in a city which was international, because in Rabat or Casablanca in the Moroccan territory, he was always forbidden by the French to speak to public. So he said he will go to Tangier to make a speech. So he took the train. The day when he was traveling to Tangier, to the north, to make the speech, the French had organized a sort of riot, and there were some killing to obstaculate his trip to Tangier. In spite of that, he took the train and went to Tangier. Now, the train is from Fez, from Rabat to Tangier, through Asila. Why Asila? Asila, there is a train station because Asila used to be in early 20th century the harbor for Fez, because Fez used to be the capital now. So he said, I will stop in Asila to have lunch. So the Spaniards organized the top of a hill, a big tent. So he got out of his train, was taken by a car, open car, and he had lunch in Asila. That's the meaning from the monarchy of Morocco to Asila. Why? Because Asila used to be a city considered as a headquarters for those who fled, who were chased from Al-Andalus, and a lot of warriors that died were originally from Asila, especially against the Portuguese occupation, because Asila was occupied by Portugal in the 15th century, almost 100 years, 80 or 90 years. So when we've started the Asila festival, we plan to make an management of this hill and build this concrete sculpture, which is 15 meters high. Okay. While that one in Rabat is 18 meters high. I don't know, I like high.
Yeah, very good.
This is my story of
Mohammed, I have to stop here. We have sadly come to an end of the talk today. I want to thank, first I want to thank Lina Golzer for a beautiful introduction she made. I also want to thank Dr. Murad Montazimi for these wonderful words. And I definitely want to thank above all, as also Noor Tanir, my colleague, who put together the beautiful slides. But above all, I want to thank Mr. Sidi Mohamed Melehi, who has been very patient with me and my incessant phone calls, calling him over and over and messaging and emailing. And he's been very patient. And I really, really appreciate it, Si Mohamed. And it's a great honor once again to be having you here. I think if we had 2-3 hours, it will not be enough because you're such a great storyteller.
If you allow me to add something. Firstly, I thank you to have me in this program, and also to apologize to those who have been following this program if there has been any mistake or injury in general. And also I would like to address an appeal to Arab artists to get together, I don't know how, and just to mark their presence and existence in the world as a world of culture and knowledge, and stop considering the Western is ahead of us. That's it.
Thank you. God bless you, Sidi Mohamed. What a lovely way to end the conversation today. And I hope all the luck for your show coming up in Dubai. I know we are loaning one of our artworks there, and we are very proud to have your works in our collection. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a nice day, wherever you are. Have a good night if you're here in the Middle East. All the best to you, and stay strong. All the best. Goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.